Daniel, you're up last, sir. Hello.
Hey Bart, good morning from Australia.
Good
How are you?
morning. How's it going? Thanks for, what is it?
Good. Good.
Just around approaching 7:15 a.m. there, right?
Yes, it is.
All right. So where are we playing out of?
So playing from Melbourne, Australia, playing in a private home game in Toorak.
So Melbourne, is it true that they shut the Crown Poker down? Is it shut
No,
down?
no.
Oh, it's not.
It's
Oh,
it's
just
still
tournaments that's shut down.
exactly. It was just the
Okay.
Aussie Millions that they shut down.
Okay. Okay.
But poker room's still going quite strong.
Okay. So, but this isn't a private game.
Yes, it's in a private
And
game.
what's the size of the game?
So we're playing 10, 20, 40.
10, 20, 40 Australian. Okay.
Yep. So
Uh-huh.
the buy-in is between 1 to 4,000.
Okay. 1 to 4,000. Okay. And the effective stacks?
Effective stacks, 11,000.
Oh, so quite deep.
So quite deep. Yes.
So
So
11,000. So you're almost 300 big blinds deep, right?
yes.
Okay.
And also we've got other side games going on as well. We've
Like
got
like props and shit?
sorry, what was that?
Like props and stuff or
Like we're playing a button game. So button game, how it works is the button puts on an ante, $50, and only the small blind can win that.
yes, I'm
So
right. I do. And then it just so every time somebody's on the button they have to add 50, right? It just keeps going on and on, right? Is that how it works?
correct,
Yeah.
correct. So it incentivizes the small blind to play more hands.
Right. And then of course if you saw Hustler Casino Live, we have the it's akin. I like those games better than Seven Deuce Bounty personally.
Yes.
I'm not a huge fan of Seven Deuce Bounty just because like I said, it adds a bluffing frequency. If you picture like the absolute best poker game in the world, you'd play against a bunch of guys that are incapable of bluffing, right? Where you can always make correct folds, especially if they call too much and value bet them to death. But then when you stick in a bounty game that forces them to bluff more, it's actually bad for you. That's always been my take. Now some people go buck wild in that game, but okay. So there's other games going on. Okay. Yep.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. So yeah, and look, I'm a recreational player, so I
Mm-hmm.
thought I'll just run this hand by you because
Sure.
this pot got quite big.
Okay. Let's do it.
And yeah, let's go for it. So it's 10, 20, 40. So small blind 10, big blind 20, so straddle 40.
Yep.
Comes to me, I was on the button, look down at ace jack, ace of hearts, jack of clubs.
Okay.
I raised it up to 150.
150. So, yeah, okay. So that's like, just under 4x. So it gets folded to you, nine-handed, right? And you go ace jack off to 150. Okay. Yep.
Reason being was I wasn't a button, and I know small blind calls quite often
Sure.
due to the button game.
Right. How much money was in that little bounty, right? At the moment, do you remember?
It would have been about 400, 404, 4
Yep.
to 500. Can't
Yep.
remember exactly.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
So obviously, small blind calls, big blind folds, and then under the gun, he calls as well.
Straddle
so
calls.
the
Okay.
straddle.
Yep. So 150 call, and pot's probably like 460 or something like that, right?
470. Yep.
470. And the pot, of course, for the small blind is actually bigger in the sense that he can actually win 870.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So you have to take that into a little bit of account where there might be a higher bluffing frequency, right? Because by him actually trying to win the pot, he's getting a better price sometimes if he's, you gotta pay attention to those little subtle things. Okay. So what's the flop?
So flop comes jack of spades, 8 of hearts, 4 of hearts.
Jack of spades, 8 of hearts, 4 of hearts, hero with ace of hearts, jack of clubs. So you flop top with 2 hearts. Okay.
Yep. Small blind checks. Big under the gun checks.
Yep.
So then I've got top, so I decide to bet 205.
So you go 205, which is about 40% of the pot. This is interesting here because you go 205. So the flagship podcast that's going to be coming out tomorrow, May 2nd, when we record this, is all about overbetting. Our buddy Nate in the live chat, him and I, we went back and forth for some prep work this afternoon on that. And there's going to be some parts about flop overbetting. And normally you're not overbetting on the flop and I'm not talking about overbetting here, but just sort of in general, like large sizing. You're not overbetting like somewhat multi-way, but sometimes you can do it 3 ways. The thing I would look at here is there's not a ton of 2-pair or straights that are represented here. Now, obviously, you do have the ace of hearts. So whenever there are not viable 2-pair, now obviously the straddle, I guess, could have jack 8 here. Like this would be a little bit better. And then we might go down the road where we could say the small blind's actually calling extra wide because of the fact that he's incentivized for this bounty. But I might take this one actually for larger sizing here and go for value to like, go for value to like 325, whatever, 60, whatever, what is that? What's 70%, 325, something like that. I might take a little bit larger sizing. Of course, you could always take this like, 150 to 160 type of sizing with more of a range of hands. But you kind of go in between. I'll say you go 205, okay.
Yeah, I did think about betting bigger as well, but because I had the ace of heart, I thought didn't need too much protection. But then we'll go to the turn. So the turn does come at heart.
So wait a minute, you got ahead of yourself. What happens here? You go 205, and then what happens?
Yep. So the turn comes, 9 of heart comes.
What did your opponents do on the flop?
Oh, sorry. Oh, yes. My bad. So I bet 205, and they both call.
Okay. All right. So small blind and straddle call. Small blind and straddle call. Interesting. Now, there's obviously some 9-10 and stuff like that. Flush draws. And so 205 is 4-10, 6-15. So we're looking at
$1,085.
Yeah, $1,085. By the way, if you are watching this on YouTube, we are giving away 3 months to the CLP premium level plan. We're doing a little promotion. You will also get a year's worth of Preflop Plus for free with the Solve for Live ranges already loaded in. If you want to get in on that giveaway, just click on the link in the description. It will take you to Gleam, and you can do some different levels of things to get more entries. All right, so back to Mr. Australia here at 1,085 with ace jack on jack 8-4, bets 205, small blind, and straddle call. Okay, what's the turn?
So the turn comes a 9 of hearts.
So you pick up the nut flush draw, 1 card nut flush draw, right?
Yes.
But it's kind of like a little bit dicey here in between, right?
Exactly, and it completes a straight as well. So the board's not looking great, then small blind and straddle checks to me. Check
to the hero here. And what am I thinking about Daniel here? What would I be doing here? I think that there is more of a case to be made for betting more often here. I think if it's heads up with the ace of hearts, and I would do more checking here with it being with 2 people. So I think I would do a fair amount of checking here. Another subtle thing here is that I would rather have an overpair here than ace jack, because you're trying to think about like what are the hands. I would like to unblock the jack here too. Like obviously like having like aces with the ace of hearts would be better. I would just like to unblock the jack here, giving my opponents more of a chance to have top pair. And when you have a jack, there's less of a chance that they have top pair. It kind of skews them more towards a little bit of draws, some of the straight draws. Of course, queen 10, is obviously a gut shot here. Also, too, the straddle can be pretty wide, so there's a possibility of having 8. Now, I think I would check back here a lot against 2 people. That's my take.
Yes, I guess that's not what I did. So my train of thought was I do have the ace of hearts, so I do block the nut flush.
Yeah.
So I do bet 550.
So you take an in-between bet, though, against 2 people. Here's the only thing I would say about this. So there is a little bit of merit to what you're saying, in the sense of if you continue to bet, now you're taking in-between sizing, but if you continue to bet, especially a little bit on the larger sizing, a lot of people are just going to call, even with flushes here. Like if you're betting into 2, this is why sometimes making this bet is kind of too thin. I feel like, because a lot of times people will just call with smaller flushes if you're taking this line. Not always, but they will a lot. So if you bet here and somebody calls, I don't think you can ever really go 3 streets, or it would be way too thin when a lot of strong hands are calling because you look really strong, like 2 pair of flushes, things like that. So, I mean, that's kind of like, do you think you can, I mean, you can get called by worse, but do you see how I think that your hand might be a little bit in between here to bet into 2 people? Plus, you don't want to get blown off your equity too, just, just in case somebody might raise you.
Correct. I think that's the reason for this call. I think this is the position where I was a bit confused and see where I could have done better.
Like I said, I think I probably would be doing more betting heads up and more checking. You say you go 505 here, right? 505, is that right? Okay, so you go 505, and what happens?
Oh, sorry, it's 550. My bad.
550?
Yep.
Okay, 550. Okay, so 550. So it's just like half the size of the pot. Okay. Mm-hmm.
Yep. So small blind folds.
Okay.
And this is where the straddle raises me to 1,550.
He goes to 1550?
Yep, 1550.
So 1550 here. And I mean, again, this is interesting because like you wouldn't think that a straight would really check raise here. I mean, it's more of a truth serum if the other guy had called too. I mean, if like say for example the small blind called and now this guy check raises. I mean, then it's 100% just flushes for value, just for value. Here heads up again. You probably, I mean, you wouldn't. It would kind of at this stack depth. I think most people are just calling with anything else but a flush. It's interesting that you have the ace of hearts here. I mean, at this point, though, it's like I got to do some math out here because I don't even know if you can call. Because I mean, so you go 550, that makes the pot like right around 1650. He goes 1550, so that makes it like 3,200. Very rough, 3,200, 1,000 for you to call. So at that point, you're really only getting like 3.25 to 1. If he does have a flush, then you only actually have 7 outs, in which case you would need like 5 to 1. And the other problem with like playing your hand, like going for a draw here, is that it's the most, I mean, it's so transparent. Now, with that being transparent, meaning like if another heart comes out, like it's 4 hearts, right? With that being said, though, it's kind of funny with live players. I actually have seen some people they have such a hard time releasing when they make a 2-card flush and then they get run out like with a 4th flush, that sometimes you can actually make some money here. But I don't think anybody is gonna fault you though here for folding. Again, if I'm doing the math out here, it's 1,600 and then 1,550 is like 3,200, 1,000 for you to call. I mean, I know you've got the ace of hearts in your hand, and then someone might say, well, re-raise as a bluff. Well, good luck in getting somebody to fold a flush here, through a check raise. But I mean, that's kind of my take. This is partially another reason why you don't want to get into this spot, and this is why you lean towards checking back some of the time.
Yes, I agree with that. And this was against Joe Hachem as well. So
you didn't say that at the top of this.
Sorry.
I forgot. I remember that. So the villain in the hand is Joe Hachem.
Yes. So pretty much
for all you youngsters out there, Joe Hachem, of course, won the 2005 World Series of Poker, and I remember it. He was playing against Chris Binger or Nick Binger, and then who was the guy that got second? What the hell was that guy's name? Do you remember? The guy that got second? Clean-cut white guy. I know his face. I can't remember his name. But anyways, it was the first time that the World Series was held at the Rio. And but I believe the final table was actually held at Binion's. They moved it over. That was the first year I went. That was the first year it was at Binion's. Yeah. So what is the deal with Joe Hachem? How does he play these cash games? I played with him in a lot of mixed tournaments. Not so much in... He plays a lot of the mixed tournaments. So I've played a lot of 10K mixed tournaments. He hasn't done anything that was really crazy. Some of these famous guys like fall into different categories. Like one, you're like, what the fuck is this guy doing? Like he's out of his mind. These old school, like, TV pros. He never really struck me, and I knew that he was a cash game pro before he had that fame. So what is? Why don't you try to give me your take on him?
No, he's a very solid player. So um, he reads pretty much most situation quite well. And we were both the deep stack at the table. So, and it was getting late at night, getting close to where we were.
I just don't. So somebody has said two pair. Yeah, I think I don't know. I mean, I could be wrong, but he tends to be. By the way, Steve Daneman was not the person I was thinking of, but he was the guy that was second to Hachem. I do remember that. I was thinking about somebody else. I think I might have the wrong year with Binger or something like that. But so did you call here or what?
So I guess my train of thought is I still block the nut flush. Potentially, if I do brick out, I could bluff at the end because we still had.
You're gonna bluff. So wait a minute though, Daniel. If you call here, so you call here, you put in 3,100. The pot's gonna be like 4,100. You guys have, maybe like 9,000 left. But if he's gonna put in like two or even a $3,000 bet, you're not gonna be able to get him off of a flush. You're gonna have less than a pot size raise. So I don't know if I like that plan to call and then raise the river. You know what I mean? I mean, because especially if he, and then of course the other problem is that if for some reason he was taking some ridiculous like non-flush value hand for some sort of protection, because it is kind of a small raise, which I don't necessarily buy, and then he checks the river, I think he's gonna be calling with all those hands here too. It sounded to me like you called. Did you call?
Yeah, I did call.
All right, so hero calls. And now we're at, so we just put in 31. 4, yeah, so it's like 4,200, something like that.
Yep.
Okay. And the river.
So the river comes a repeat 8 of clubs.
The 8 of clubs?
Yes. So it'll be Jack of spades, 8 of hearts, 4 of hearts, 9 of hearts, and 8 of clubs.
So Jack 8, 4, 9, 8. So what does that change? Of course, it changes that somebody might get scared if they have a flush, or if they were doing it with worse. It also it counterfeits Jack 9 if it was ever taken for check raising. You still don't beat Jack 9 though, but it counterfeits Jack 9, and then of course there's less combos of 8, 9. But again, that all goes back to like, are those hands really check raising turn? Okay, so now what happened?
So Joe checks to me, and then
this is interesting.
Decision.
Joe checks. Aussie checks.
Yes.
Oh my God.
This is when I know, like, my Jack is no good here. So I guess I have a decision on.
Well, let me ask you this quick question here, Daniel. So, what if the river was just a brick that didn't pair the board, like an offsuit deuce, and he checked to you?
Oh, that's a good question. Because I think if it's an off, because on the turn I kind of put him on a flush already. I don't think he was ever raising me there without a flush. So I think he would have still bet if the board didn't pair up.
Right. Okay. So, but do you understand what I'm saying though? Like, you seem to get on board with me where you think he's got mostly flushes when he check raises the turn. So, don't you think that probably should lend your hand to a fold on the turn? I mean,
I guess I just wanted to
get him. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, okay, so he checks now, and then what do we've got going on here? I mean, obviously, we have probably a pretty good candidate. Again, it's hard for me to get here because it's illogical for me to get. It's a little bit illogical where we always think he's got flushes on the turn, not get the price, and also not think we can bluff him off it, unless we were specifically, I'm going to bluff him off a board pair. The properties of our hand are actually probably fairly decent here in the sense that he doesn't have the nut flush, and then of course he can't have jacks full here. The fact that you have a jack here, this is a much probably better bluff than not having a jack here, even though we keep saying like he probably only has flushes on the turn. Obviously there's far less of a chance he's ever sandbagging like and that he played pocket eights like this on the flop because now there's only one combo. And, 9-8, same thing. Could he have nines maybe once in a while? Yeah, I mean, I can get on board here. Probably, I don't think you can win by checking behind. I don't think you can win by checking behind here. But I think I would probably have folded the turn. I think is what my case here. I'm sort of scrolling through here the notes or the live chatters. Poker Troll says just check. He's going to call the bluff. So the only thing that would make sense for him, the only thing that I guess would be like, what you mean, like Joe Hachem thinks that this guy just has the naked ace of hearts and is going to bluff with it? Maybe.
Yep. So this is when I just went, I'm just going to follow through with my plan and rip it in for my whole stack, 9,000.
Now that's quite interesting. Now here's the other thing though. The only thing that I would say about this is that, so hero bets 9,000, right?
Yep,
about 9,000. The only thing about the only problem now though with that bet on this paired board is you don't want to get into a situation now where you're only repping boats. We talked about how the properties of your hand is good because you know he doesn't have the nut flush. But now all of a sudden, if you take such a large sizing where you're like, I only have boats here, then if I'm him, I go back in my head a little bit and I say, what boats does this guy have? Because why is he betting the turn? Put this back in your head. Like if I'm you and I have pocket jacks on the flop here, okay, and I flop top set and I bet, right, and it gets two callers. Isn't the 9 of hearts like one of the worst cards for me ever in the deck here? Because there's less top pairs that have called. Like my opponents are more skewed towards bluffs. So I don't, just kind of just stay with me here. So I don't want to take a bet size here that is only saying I only have a full house, because I don't know of the hands that make full houses on the river, what hands are betting on the turn in your position?
The nut flush. I could have the nut flush.
But are you betting this sizing on the river though with the nut flush when the board all of a sudden pairs? That's my point.
Well, because since he's checked back to me, I don't think he would have a book. So I would actually value my nut flush. But yes, you're right. Would I go?
No, I do agree that you would obviously bet the nut flush. I'm just saying, would you? Okay, so this would be a situation where you'd bet the nut flush on the turn, just call his check raise, and then over jam 2x when the board pairs when he checks. Do you see what I'm saying? At the end, like it's that whole sequence would have to go down where, okay, yeah, fine, fast play, bet the nut flush draw, call. He sort of mini check raises you just call, but now the board pairs and he checks, and now you go 2x with the nut flush. So, that's the only thing. So I was just trying to think of like, I don't know if I would do that. Now, sure, like you go polar, you give him worse of a price, but that's my only thinking in this particular spot, because I don't want it just to be, I don't want to get into a situation where it's just full houses, and then he looks at this and he's a good hand reader and he's like, what full houses does this guy have when he bets turn? What ended up happening?
So Joe tags for a good 5-10 minutes, and then gave me the stare down, and he folds.
Oh, okay. Did you ever find out what he had?
So funny enough, I actually just found out. He had the 10 of hearts and the king of hearts.
Oh my god! That's what did you ask him or something?
Yeah, so one of my friends, I told him that I was coming onto this show, and he sent him a text and going, hey, is it okay to mention your name, and
wow,
you need to let us know your hand?
Well, if he hears this, shout out to the world champ. I'll probably see him. I think he plays the so usually I play the 10K limit 08, but I'm skipping that this year, but I will be playing the 10K pot limit 08, which is the day after the meetup on July 2nd. And I think he does play that. So that's my best chance to see him, because that's a small field of like 200 people. I think he might have final tabled that one time. So yeah, shout out to Joe Hachem. Yeah, that's, I wonder if if I see Joe, I wonder what he thinks about, if he thinks that you, Daniel, would have the nut flush here as played. Because again, I go back to that whole turn thing where how often are you betting a hand that fills on the river on the turn with 2 callers in on the flop? Maybe. But that 9 of hearts is not a great card for pocket jacks. Now, if I had 8s here, would I bet? Maybe on the turn. Maybe I can, whatever, easily call across, unblocking top pair. But now the 8 comes on the river. Now I got quad, so there's only one combo of it. Pocket 4s. Okay. So you got like 8s, 4s. So it's interesting, but it got through. I appreciate the call, Daniel. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Bart. Really appreciate it.
All right.
Have a good
All right,
have a good
guys.
night.
Awesome.